I'm so excited to chat with Melisa Keenan on the 𝐌𝐞𝐥𝐢𝐬𝐚 𝐊𝐿𝐴 Melissa is a keynote speaker, international and USA Today bestselling author, and the go-to intuitive intimacy expert for the top 1%. She helps high-achieving business owners have more confidence, connection, ease, and trust in their personal relationships through mastery of intimacy and masculine feminine energy. My favorite topic, so I'm so excited. And I know she has so much love and wisdom to share with us today. She's joining me from Nevada in the USA. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Hi, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited for our conversation. But before we dive in, I always like to ask my guests this question. What is your definition of an awakened feminine?
Oh, I love that. Mm. What comes to mind immediately is being really connected to your intuition above all else, um, which allows you to see clearly when messages are being thrown at you that aren't true or in alignment, and allows you to, release those and just simply pursue what is true and what is in alignment with like the development of your soul, your purpose, and how you relate with others. I think that's my definition.
That's a beautiful definition. Thank you so much for sharing. So, Melissa, I'm just going to ask you this. We want to talk about, a few specific topics today, but I really would like you to share with us, a bit more about who you are, because I only really gave a snapshot of who you are, and why you do what you do.
Yeah, so I probably lived a great majority of my life without intimacy, not knowing what I was missing, but feeling that there was something missing for me. Um, Moments like my children's birth or my wedding or my wedding night, like those were intimate experiences. Like there were fleeting moments, but growing up in a home with a lot of abuse and addiction and confusion, and then rolling right into creating a family and having no clue what a strong family really meant, just knowing that I wanted one. um, I I think that my thirst for this missing piece always was present. Um, and I think society kind of I think we all have that thirst in us, but society kind of makes us feel like you're sort of wrong or bad, or there's something wrong with you if you feel that way. Like society makes you feel like it's because you're not enough, why your experience doesn't feel like enough. And so I got so muddled and confused in all of that. But 5 years into my marriage, my husband gave me the greatest balm and gift in my life, which was that he confessed to a secret addiction that I knew nothing about our entire marriage. And, here I was with 3 children at the time. We have 4 now, but 3 children, and all 4 and under, all in diapers in some capacity. And it was like, what does this mean? I had worked so hard to try to create perfect. I was such a perfectionist. It was about survival for me. So, to have something like that, it distorted my whole reality, and I was diagnosed with PTSD. And then my husband and I separated for 6 months. So it was literally like everything overnight was flipped upside down. And, at the time I thought that I wouldn't survive the whole ordeal. And I just was so terrified. But hindsight, so I'm like, it was the greatest gift that I could have been given, because it forced me to really go within and start to build intimacy with myself. And I just got very focused on my own happiness and my own fulfillment, and really understanding who I was and surrendering all the things that I couldn't control. And the beautiful thing that happened in our marriage is my husband also went to work on his self. And eventually, I mean, gosh, he moved back in after 6 months, but it took another probably about 2.5 years before we really were like, oh, this marriage is going to last. Like it took a lot of time, but we got to this point, and I can remember where I was sitting and everything at one point, looking over at him and going, oh my gosh, like I am so happy and fulfilled. And the connection that we have created, I didn't even know it existed. Like I didn't know that marriage could feel this amazing. And having gone from literally just 2.5 years prior, believing that I had been sold some sort of fairy tale that was a lie, that true happiness in marriage didn't really exist. And to really being like, no, it does. Like, and it's not a fairy tale. That was when I was awakened to like, I have to do something. Like, I don't know what it's going to be, but I have to help people see. I have to help people have what we have. And so that was the catalyst that, propelled me into ultimately a coaching certification program kind of fell into my lap. And it was just like, following the next right thing and the next right thing. And till today, when I now serve, business professionals and high achievers, supporting them to access this intimacy and then recognize and utilize it as their superpower. Because really that's what intimacy is, which is why I think that society tries to keep us away from it, keep us small and disempowered, or, I run into a lot of these kinds of individuals as my clients, where it's like, I've created all this success, but I know something's still missing, and so that's why I do the work that I do. I also want to weave in the feminine aspect, since that's what your podcast is about. It was during that whole, kind of dark night of the soul that I became aware of masculine and feminine energy. I had no idea what that stuff was. I mean, I was given a book, which actually I would say contains some truth, some untruth, some beneficial stuff, some damaging stuff. But, I was so resistant to the idea of the feminine that I got to like page 20 and I chucked the book across the room. I was like, this is crap, this is just one more way people are trying to put me in a box and keep me small. And the feminine felt dangerous. It felt super risky. Like, on the outside, I've always been girly, but that doesn't have anything to do with true feminine, right? Because being girly on the outside was also part of my survival strategy. It was like, that was how you get by, right? But on the inside, it was like, I am tough. Don't mess with me. I keep you at an arm's length away. I have walls and they are thick, and you are highly privileged if you are let in. You know what I mean? So beginning that journey of kind of opening my heart and unraveling that survival, it was hard, it was long, but it was so beautiful. Where I thought that the feminine was asking me to just yet again be someone that I wasn't, I found the feminine was actually in me, and it was asking me to bring forward a part of myself that I had like shoved away and locked away in a box. And it was such a gift. It has connected me more to my divine nature. And I found that there's a lot of patterns that show up in partnerships. When we show up in the masculine in our partnership, And this is the part we don't really like to talk about when we talk about the feminine, but there is some truth to this piece of polarity. When we show up in the masculine in our partnership so often, it's sort of, our husbands sort of fall into a default space in yin or feminine energy, which leads to us not really respecting them, not really having a super high sex drive for them. It leads to a lot of difficulty. And it usually means that they are less fulfilled as well, right? Like they're just trying to keep the peace. They're trying to go with the flow. They're trying to keep you happy. And it's such a yucky dynamic. Nobody likes that, right? But the polarity piece is real. So if you show up in the masculine, your partner's either going to show up in the feminine, or he's also going to show up in the masculine, and you're going to fight like crazy. That's the other thing that happens. So when I stepped into my feminine, there was a huge growth period for my husband where he really began to learn what his divine masculine was. And so it's been absolutely like just a beautiful journey.
Oh, so much there. Thank you for sharing that. That is just such a beautiful, journey to really discovering yourself and how the dynamics work in partnership with your partner. A few questions popped up, and I hope I remember them all, because I have a tendency of asking a question and then the other question goes out the window. The first one is, I love how you said intimacy is into me see. I was like, oh, yes. Now, can you just quickly not explain, but like just unpack for our audience? When you talk about intimacy, are you talking about intimacy with yourself, with your partner? Like what is intimacy? Because some people, we don't know what it is.
We don't. And it's like I shared in my story, I didn't even know it was the thing I was missing. We don't even know. And then when we have it, we don't even know what it is that we have. We just know that we really like it. And then sometimes when it seems to sort of go away, we feel very vulnerable. Like, what the crap was that? That was so intense. I loved it and I'm terrified of it. Like I want more of it and I also don't. But when I speak of intimacy really is so multi-layered. It's mental, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's physical. It involves sex, right? Oftentimes people use the word intimacy in replacement for sex, but really physical intimacy is only one facet of what intimacy is. And when I talk about intimacy, it is intimacy with yourself. It is intimacy with others. I walk around with like intimacy as my lens for how I see the world. So for me, I'm in relationship to everything. I'm in relationship with my business. I'm in relationship with the walls of my home, with, nature and, the ground. Like I'm in relationship with the universe and the stars. To me, intimacy is everywhere. And it's an invitation all the time to be present and close to what it is that you're experiencing, or to not. And, probably most of us walk around very disconnected, including me. I still live in this world.
Oh, do you?
Right.
It's good to know you're human.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that explanation. So it is really that, that building that close relationship, not just with yourself, but really everything around you, inanimate and animate objects. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Living, breathing, and not living, breathing as well. So I love that. So I want to talk a bit about the relationship between you and your husband. So you said, he left, you guys separated for 6 months and then you came back together, and it was another 2.5 years before you kind of went, oh, this is what an amazing marriage feels like. Can you share and unpack a bit more about, what were the things that you guys did, the tools or, the healing modalities, whatever it is, that really helped you guys to rebuild that relationship and find the intimacy in your relationship?
Yeah. So, I mean, certainly the tools is like all what I'm all about, right? And there's so much. And what really worked for us and supported us isn't the same thing that really works always and supports the couples that I work with, or the women that I work with, or the men that I work with, because that's kind of the point of intimacy. Is it's actually about going inward and finding the wisdom that's in you, because you already always know the next thing that you need. So when you go to look for support, right? If you're listening and you're thinking, yeah, like I want some support in my marriage, or I want to experience that, or really when you go to look for support for anything, you want to look for somebody who believes that principle, believes that the wisdom is inside of you, not outside of you, who's trying to help you bring forward your masterpiece and your divine nature, rather than imprint upon you their masterpiece and their awakening and their divine nature, right? So I want to preface that before sharing a bit of our story. One of the most powerful pieces for us was I didn't know this. I wasn't conscious or cognizant of how afraid I was of certain aspects of life. But perfectionism really is that fear, right? To want to control what you can't control. And that was so strong for me that really there were parts of my husband I didn't want to see. And he stepped forward and said, here it is. Here I am. And I would have never considered myself somebody who had her head buried under the sand, or who just walked around wearing rosy colored glasses. But the reality was that was the case. So when he removed my rosy colored glasses for me, I went into total shock. It took me some time. But what I would say to this is one of the greatest pieces that does take time, that isn't something that is necessarily a process or a step-by-step A+B=C that I can necessarily take people through. It's just a journey. An invitation is to actually see all parts of your partner. And as we did that, my husband had this great capacity to also see all parts of me, which was also terrifying, right? I think when we haven't embarked on this journey of intimacy, we sort of walk around thinking, there's parts of me that if people knew, they would never love me. And it's a deep subconscious. It's never true, never. But we carry this little piece, right? So allowing ourselves to be seen, again, is what we crave and what we fear. But actually, what happened for us was when I really recognized, like, when I married this man, I loved him, but I was more infatuated, and I loved the idea of who he could be. I didn't really even know him. I mean, our engagement was fast, and it was, lightning, and it was all stars and sparkles, right? We both had our best foot forward, and he was the same. He loved the best foot forward that I had shown him. But then we went through this process of actually knowing all parts of each other, the light and the darkness, the strength and the weaknesses. And I watched him go about like slaying his own inner dragons, and he the same for me. And it's like, that is true intimacy. You can't actually deeply connect with someone if there's not honesty. Like a full transparency. So that's a piece that I actually don't talk about very often, because it's scary for people. It's like, hey, you can create deep intimacy. Just share all your deepest, darkest secrets. And it's going to be like, awesome. Exactly.
Yeah.
But recently I had a couple go through this process, and I had actually worked with them for a year. I had worked with her even longer. She started with me, and that's kind of a common, if it is a fit, then I'll work with the wife, and then eventually I'll work with she and her partner. And I was meeting with the husband, and they had made a ton of progress, but they'd kind of reached a plateau, and I couldn't see how to help them get over the hump. Like, it was like, it was something I was pondering on often. And they had something happen in their extended family that was really upsetting for him. And he requested a session with just me. And absolutely, we get on this call, and I recognized he's carrying a lot of this like guilt, but from based on everything I knew about the man, I just assumed it was misplaced guilt. And honestly, probably 90% of it was like where people had accused him of things that he hadn't actually done. And so I encouraged him to like, look, it's time. Go through, make a list of all the things that you feel guilty about, and then look at each item. Ask yourself honestly, like, is there something here that I need to make amends for? Like, is there legitimately something that I can do to try to make this right? And then the things where you're like, yeah, there is, then do it. And the things where you're like, no, actually, this isn't even real. I didn't even do this thing. Like, it's time to let that stuff go, right? And so we had this great call and everything. And then a few days later, he let us know that the truth was he had actually had an affair on his previous wife. And it was a secret he was literally going to take with him to his grave, because he had been so judged and so misunderstood that it was like, if he admitted to even the tiniest, weakness, he would be condemned. But this wasn't a tiny weakness. This was a huge transgression, right? Like, it was a one night thing. It was, it was what it was, but there was no way he was going to share that. And he decided, like, you know what, I got to share this. It happened 20 years prior. And my heart ached for him because he carried that all that time. It was insane when he released it and he decided to go talk to his ex-wife, let her know, tell his adult children, let them know, of course, tell his current wife, and they worked through it together, whatever. It was like, this was a new man. Boy, like that was where their most biggest leap of progress came. It was so amazing to witness him like really stepping into that masculine space, and then them really stepping into that intimacy space. It was crazy. It was so cool.
I love it. And yeah, wow. Just a few things came to mind. So, the first one, I love that you kind of gave us that preface that everyone's journey and the needs for every single couple is different. So what worked for you doesn't necessarily work for other people. So thank you for, sharing that, because there's part of me that has a problem when people say this is the way to do it and that's the only way to do it, because I know that's not true. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. And honesty, the story that you told, just something that you can hold on for 20 years and just being able to let that go and release all the shame, the guilt, can change a person. And isn't it crazy that, you don't know that, no one knew except for him. So the honesty part is just so important. So, and just listening to you talk about, your husband having to see all of you, every single part of you, and you the same for him. And that is, like you say, for most couples is like, I don't want that to be the thing that needs to happen for us to reach intimacy. Yeah. So that's just really, really cool. Now, the next thing I really want to ask you about is, you mentioned before that, a lot of women, we kind of come into a relationship being very masculine, because I think a lot of us have, because of society and programming, have been very masculine women, not not on the outside, but just how we operate. Like you say, you were girly, but you weren't feminine, playing in the feminine energy. And so a lot of women would go into a relationship being masculine, and then you have the guy either being more feminine or masculine. I really would like you to talk a bit more about, the masculine and feminine energy. And we were talking about this before we jumped on the call, how understanding your male counterparts really helps you to awaken and discover your feminine and your masculines. Can you talk a bit more about that? Because I think that's a really important topic to talk about.
Yeah, when you're like us, when you care a lot about being in full alignment with the truth of who you are, which means being awakened in your feminine, or being in your divine feminine, if you will, I see a gap there because we focus so much on ourselves, but we often don't realize how, because of that polarity, like, we are not separate from others, right? We really aren't. We are one. And because of that, the way that we feel about our male counterparts, and this goes whether or not you are monogamous, whether or not you are heterosexual, like, this applies to everyone. If you have difficulty with the men in your world and in your space, it's going to be a barrier to you accessing your feminine, because you haven't learned that it's safe to rest in the masculine, which actually is kind of trippy. That also translates into feeling very unsafe with your own personal masculine energy within yourself, right? We all have this dance of masculine, feminine energy within each and every human being. Masculine, feminine, maybe you want to call it yin or yang. It doesn't actually denote gender. It's just a set of characteristics, right? We all have that within us. So we actually, because of the wounding that we have around our male counterparts, we have wounding around our masculine energy in general. And so it behooves us, for one, if we want to fully be in our feminine, to actually look at that and heal some of those relationships, which again, boy, we're going deep today, aren't we? Mm-hmm. Masculine wounding can feel so heavy. And I bring this to the table from experience. Like, every man in my whole upbringing and then in my marriage, right, have done things that have deeply hurt me or the women in my ancestry. And when I say that, I'm not just like talking surface stuff here. Abuse, adultery, oppression, incest, molestation, like, you name it, it's been done. And I'm talking just a few generations back, like what really affects me. And so to be able to sit here today and even speak to this represents a lot of healing that I've needed to do and that I've been gifted to do. So when a woman is really in her, fully expressed feminine, it feels like this peace. Like, when I think about all of the things that have happened about the men in my life and the men in my ancestry and in my experience, it's not that pain goes away. Like, that's one thing we know about the feminine, right? It's very emotive, and we are awakened, we are open, we are feeling all the things. But there's a peace and an ability to sit with the paradox of men. Men have an innate violence. It's built into them, right? If you want to look at evolutionarily, it's like go out and kill the predators and protect the tribe, and right. they have an innate violence in them. That's a piece that we don't even want to see. We want to be protected, but any other time that like shows itself, we are like, that's wrong. Like, shut that down. Being able to sit with the paradox of men, right? Like, what feels contradictory? How can I be with a man who has innate violence and feel safe? You know, it's big, heavy stuff for some of us. But when we're in a partnership and we take that, step into the unknown, even though it feels scary, and we allow ourselves to more fully receive the man that we have bonded ourselves to, something amazing happens. It's so healing. And likewise, our men need this. So there is just a big, I feel like it's a big sickness that covers the planet right now, which is man shaming, masculine tearing down. You watch sitcoms, all the men are stupid. They have no wits about them, right? Even the brothers in the Disney shows or whatever, it's like, who would want anything to do with that guy? He's a total dummy, right? It's so sad. And then you think about our men and how they were raised. There's so much shaming of emotions or sensitivities and things like this. And so you can't, like, that's what we're married into. Like, it behooves us to try to step into the shoes of our partner and actually look around at the world from their eyes and from their shoes and go, what does this feel like? Like, given the whole set of circumstances, what does this feel like to be this man? And try and ask ourselves, if I had had the same set of lived experiences as this man, is it possible that I might have made the same decisions that he has made, even the ones that we don't like, right? Mm-hmm. It's a work that I think many women will just absolutely say no to. I can't tell you, and it breaks my heart, and I pray that they at some time in the right timing will change how they feel. But I've had women literally say to me, I do not want to know. I don't want to know my husband's weaknesses, his vulnerabilities. Brene Brown talks about this in her work around shame, that if a man shows his weakness, the woman immediately is shut down because we want to keep our husbands up on their white horse. That's where we feel safest. So it requires a lot of inner work to get to that place where we can really understand our men. But it's like a healing balm that our world needs. And especially if we want our men to be good men, if we want them to be a leader in our home and to be the protector and these kinds of things, to be confident enough to make choices that are beneficial for us, or to even be confident enough to be, to really pursue us in the bedroom. Like, that's another thing that shows up in my work all the time. These women are like, he'll just sort of tiptoe around the discussion. And if I show any sign that I'm not fully ready, he's like, okay, I completely understand. It's a total turnoff. And how many women come to me and are like, I want to be ravaged by my husband. I don't know what that feels like, right? But our men they're like, I got to keep the peace. I got to let these women know that I'm not one of the bad guys. I got to protect. I got to, and so they become so small. I found myself this year asking a lot, what would it feel like to feel like I couldn't be fully self-expressed? Like I was going to hurt people if I just shared my inner stuff. Men actually feel less safe to really be expressed than women do.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I totally agree with everything you say, because I have had some conversations before where we talked about men not being able to express their emotions because people will think they're weak, and how we really need, especially for our next generation of men, to really be able to allow them to see that it's okay to show your emotions and be vulnerable, because all those things are necessary for us to create a better world. Because like you say right now, is all that wounded masculine energy, when we want our men to be that divine masculine and also have their feminine energy awakened as well within them. Because you want both those energies, the divine masculine, divine feminine, working together and dancing together.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I see is when we become like more aware of this reality that, our men don't feel safe and whatever, we often then just go to work trying to change them in that way too, right? Like we don't actually just seek to accept them for who they are. But the most powerful force of change for men is actually being radically loved and accepted just as they are. Like actually seeing your partner for all that he is, as we've been talking about, right? All the light and darkness, all of it, and loving him as is, finding, and you can't just fake this. I hate the phrase fake it till you make it. I don't believe in it. You have to find it within you. Like, what are the things I really respect about this man? And what are the things that, like, how can I see his masculine playing out in ways that I haven't seen before? That's a great question to ponder. For instance, your husband may be like stubborn about something, and so he doesn't say so, right? He kind of acts compliant with what it is that you want the whole time, but consistently he acts in accordance with something that he values, and it's not what he was saying, it's not what you were saying. He has an agenda, right? We actually want that from our men. That is him being in his masculine. So the more that we can see those kinds of things and like draw those strengths out and comment on them and let him know, like, I see that you've been a man of your convictions, and like, I'm grateful you haven't let me push you around. The more we can say those kinds of things, it actually creates this massive space for them. That's really what the feminine is, right? It is that void. It is the space. We create that space for them, and then they are able to really rise. And, often women will say, why do I have to be the one to do the work? Right? Why is it always me that has to do the work? But our society has not set up a conducive arena for men. Like, it's never going to be their first nature to go inward. That's actually feminine anyway. Going inward is feminine energy. And they're avoiding feminine energy like more than we are, right? They've been raised in the same masculine heralded society, but it's times 10 because they're in a male body. So what, that's our gift. That's our privilege. We're like the gatekeepers. We get to open the gate.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And even when I look around that, relationships, friends relationships, or, family relationships with their partners, you can see that it is that wounded masculine energy. And when you were talking about women going into relationship with the masculine energy, it's the wounded masculine that's in women, because that's what we've been programmed and taught as well. So is then finding that, divine masculine energy and pairing that up with awakening our own feminine and accepting our feminine, to then work together with our partner to, really create the beautiful relationship that you have been able to create with your husband. And I have to say that, I'm very lucky that my husband is, we have a really good relationship, and we get comments all the time from friends and family saying, what do you guys do? But it's the communication, like you were saying at the very beginning, the honesty, the communication, and allowing my husband to be my husband. Like, and not belittle him and push him around and tell him to do things. Yes, there's might be little things like chores, like you're not folding the clothes right, but, that's, little. But for the bigger things, really allowing them to protect and be the masculine energy that they are. Yeah. So I really love the work that you're doing, because I see that in my husband and my relationship, and that is how it kind of all works. And it was when I kind of awakened my feminine that our relationship kind of really accelerated and went to the next level.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So I just love the work that you're doing. And I'm like, I can keep talking to you all day, but I'm looking at the time like, I want to ask you more questions, but I think we might have to just come back on another time.
I'd love that.
But before we wrap up, I've got a couple more questions for you. So the first one is, having gone through all the things that you've gone through, going back to a younger version of Melisa, not knowing intimacy, not knowing what an amazing marriage is, what one key piece of advice you'll give her for her to be able to experience intimacy?
I think if I could just bestow it upon her like a knowing, it would be, you are enough. You are truly whole and enough just as you are. All the hustling and proving and perfecting and control.
Yeah.
It's fine. You can do that. You can achieve great things, but you, just as you are, without all of that, is enough.
That's beautiful for everyone, listening, watching this right now. It's for you. That message is for you as well. And the last question I have for you is, what is currently setting your soul on fire?
Everything that we've been talking about.
Yes.
I am actually writing a book. I don't have a title yet, but I know it's going to be about understanding men. And the intended audience is men and women, to help heal some of this. And it's been so exciting because all year the universe has been really drawing me towards men. You know how that goes, right? You don't necessarily know what the end result is. You just follow the next right thing, like the next little crumb that you receive or whatever. And as I've done that, it's actually really opened up a deeper layer of healing with men for me in my life. I was able to recognize that there's actually a lot of really good men in my life right now that I still had been keeping out. My husband and I, and our journey has been so sacred to me, but I never really let other men in besides him. Not in a weird way, but like in my heart, I had this aha that my dad died when I was 12. And I have known my father-in-law longer on this earth than I knew my dad. My husband and I have been married 14 going on 15 years. And I had never let him in. And just some really beautiful things have been happening. I had a dream the other day, actually, that I had my head rested on my father-in-law's chest, and I asked him, would you be my dad? And like, I woke up, just like full of tears. It was like, it never occurred to me that like, this hole that I've been carrying around all this time, why couldn't I? Know people who say my father-in-law is more like my real dad than my real dad, right? Yeah. And never had it even occurred to me. So just this week we went out to lunch together, just he and I, for the first time. Yeah. And It's just magical.
Oh, I'm like getting teary. That's so beautiful, Melissa. I'm so happy for you that all these beautiful things are unfolding for you and looking forward to your book. I'll definitely be very interested in reading it and learning more about our, male counterparts and, recommending that to all the women that I know that have male counterparts in their life. So thank you so much for this beautiful, beautiful conversation. So deep and so much wisdom there. So thank you so much. And before we wrap up, if people want to find out more about you, how they can work with you, where's the best place to go?
Absolutely. I have two places. One, if you're on Facebook, it's super easy to just type in the search Women Manifesting Intimacy. That's my free Facebook group that I have for women only, obviously. And then I also have a free intimacy guide on my website that you can go to www.melisakeenan.com, melisakeenan.com. And it's a beautiful guide that will take you through a process of getting into me see right away and then sharing that with someone else if you so choose. So go check out those resources. And of course that puts you into my email community and that sort of thing.
Awesome. I'll have all your details in the show notes so people can reach out to you. Thank you once again, Melissa. You're amazing.
Thank you.